Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine with this week's playlist, and this is part 2 of 5 from 75 plus 2, or is it 3? And last time I did this, and the video has been incredibly successful. I talked about how music had helped me through a very difficult time as I transitioned from being a school kid to being a man at work. Or in my case, a really unhappy time being an apprentice at a time in the 70s when bullying was rife as an apprentice, and I hated every moment, as I said in the video, and I would come home sometimes barely, finding it really hard to hide the tears from my parents to try and make out that everything was fine when it was so not fine. And music was my friend. It's weird really that thinking about the friends, younger people, it's easier now. It's easier to talk about feelings and how things are going than it was then. The 70s was a weird time, great for music, but for talking about things that are really close to you, not easy. Not easy at all. And so music was the bridge. Music was the bridge that allowed you almost talking riddles to your friends to try and tell them, I'm struggling here, I'm not doing well, I don't really need the 6th pint that I'm having, I'm hurting, I just need to talk to somebody. It just wasn't easy, but music was kind of a way of kind of helping you through that. So in this second video, I've tried to pick albums from bands that are from the other side of the Atlantic. The first video looks at the UK albums. I've not been entirely successful. I thought I would be, but I haven't. There are a couple of albums that might slot into this video that are still from the UK. But bear with me and I shall try and explain, because I've had to pick things that really did help me, not just thinking, oh, I could mention Kiss Alive from 75 or whatever, or Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith, because I wasn't aware of them in 75. I love them, but in 75 I hadn't found them yet. So all the albums I'm going to show you is because in that year, with my apprentice wages, I bought them. Right, the first one was a real help in many ways, because it showed me a world that was mysterious, menacing, and my draw towards horror films, young kids, you're just drawn towards horror films, aren't you, with that kind of macabre kind of stuff. So, band number 1, the Blue Oyster Cult. There was a couple of friends at school who bought Tyranny and Mutation, or the first album, but I hadn't heard them. But news started going around as I left school. As I started meeting people in youth clubs and talking to people on the bus, news was going around about Blue Oyster Cult, that Get the Live album. Secret Treaties was out, but no, Get the Live album, because it just pulls all of these things together. It was also well priced. It also had that cover with the limousine outside the Gothic church with the kind of Gothic letters, and it was called On Your Feet or On Your Knees, the Blue Oyster Cult. The Blue Oyster Cult is probably one of the best rock names ever, because you could just call them The Cult. I know later on there was a band called The Cult, but let's just push them to one side for a moment, because in the 70s, at this point, if you were called The Cult, you meant the Blue Oyster Cult. And the cover with them all playing guitar, which was odd, and then the cover with the audience all wearing hoods and stuff was very kind of unsettling as well. And then the back cover with the gloved hands wearing what looks like a Bible, holding even what looks like a Bible, with all the credits and everything, and the songs. The Subhuman, Harvester of Eyes, Hot Rails to Hell. What else? The Last Days of May, Cities on Flame, of course in brackets with rock and roll, ME262, The Red and the Black, 7 Screaming Disbusters, Bucks Boogie, Before the Kiss, A Red Cap, and I Ain't Got You, and then Born to Be Wild, which I guessed would be Born to Be Wild, and of course it was. Loved it. It's in places now in 2023. There's a few kind of bits on side 4 where my interest might dip a little bit, and it's a live album, a proper one. There are errors on this. There are little bits of feedback and missed notes and stuff, but it doesn't matter. It just sounds great. And it also opens with a song that you wouldn't expect. You would think this would open with Hot Rails to Hell, or it doesn't. It opens with The Subhuman, which kind of just goes, The Subhuman, and it just kind of starts. That is my favourite track on the whole thing. And it's my favourite track because of the solos. The guitar solo, the keyboard solo, the way it goes, that it's everything about The Subhuman live on this album is immaculate. And there's a feeling that the album was kind of not put together sequentially. The fact that someone later on says on your feet or on your knees, and they say it's twice, I think, that it's taken from different gigs. But again, the riffs and the production, it's one of my favourite live albums of all time, this is. I don't think the band ever really loved it. I think they felt it wasn't recorded very well and it was a bit rushed, whatever, but I don't know. I've got it on CD, but the version to get is from this box set, which I've covered, I think, years ago. I might do another video on this, because it was when I really didn't know what I was doing. But the remastering on this from the Columbia series box set is off the scale. It really is. The other CD I've got, it sounds good, but this version is just amazing. And one of the other highlights, of course, bear with me, is The Last Days of May, with Buck Dahmer's guitar solo on that. It's just achingly beautiful. 7 Screaming Disbusters, where it talks about, it's about that song about Lucifer, and they go, "Hey Lou." But there is some absolutely stunning music on this, and this helped me. I felt like I was joining a club when I did this. Bought this. It's a fantastic album. So that one really, really helped a great deal. Another one that did, because I'd started to go to rock discos and stuff at a place called the Rio, near where I lived, on a Sunday night, which was a great escape, and they played a lot of tracks from this album by Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare. I'd kind of parked Alice Cooper as being like Slade, Sweet, T-Rexy type guy in the UK. I know he's still going now, and I'm a huge fan. I've got everything he's ever done. New album's brilliant as well. But it was this album that brought me back to the Alice Cooper fold, and I've done a little video about this already. But things like the rock disco I went to, they played Devil's Food and The Black Widow. And I loved Vincent Price's monologue at the start. I loved, obviously, years ago, Steve and the Awakening and Escape. And it was fun. It gave me a sense that even in the darkest of days, as I do this video now, it's a really autumnal, rainy, misty day in Cornwall. But this album kind of still does shine a sunbeam of light into the room that it's being played in. I think it's a masterpiece. The one to get is probably the remastered CD, which comes with 3 tracks, bonus tracks: Devil's Food, Cold, Ethel, and The Awakening, different versions. So that is really, really good. And so that was another one. The next one I didn't really like musically, but lyrically it helped me. And it was Bruce Springsteen, Born to Run. Everybody I knew was buying this, and I didn't understand it, because I'd heard clips of it, and it wasn't the kind of rock music that I was really drawn to. But it was actually when I actually got a copy and played it and listened to Born to Run. I mean, that's what really did it, because lyrically it was talking to me of how I felt. It was, at this time I was thinking of hitchhiking down to Newquay in Cornwall to just get away from the factory, and just try and escape. And the lyrics that Bruce was writing spoke to me. All the lyrics, he was writing about the America that I knew in the films, the America that I knew in the cop series and the detective films, you know, and the draw then. America might have its troubles now through many people's eyes, but back then it was seen as like everybody wanted to be like that. Everyone wanted to be part of that dream. It always looked better over there than it did anywhere else. And Bruce Springsteen painted pictures in your mind of an America you thought you wanted to experience, even if it sounded a bit scary with people with, you know, people hiding around the corners and stuff. There was something about it in the way that Bruce wrote his lyrics, you know, that about juke joints and everything, all the, you know, kind of sidewalks and stuff like that. It was just something about it, and you know, and Born to Run, you know, tramps like us, baby, we were born to run. About meeting someone and just thinking, we got to get out of here, we just got to follow our dreams, we don't need, you know, grown-ups telling us what to do, we just need to do it, we need to do it now. Oh, youth. But it was the track that did it the most to me was Jungle Land, with that Clarence Clemons sax solo of From the Gods, isn't it? It's amazing how the Bruce Springsteen sets the scene lyrically. He paints a script that your imagination creates characters to be in that script. You can visualize the whole thing. And then as it comes to that first climax of the song, and then Clarence Clemons carries you into the story with that saxophone solo that is just absolutely amazing. The Rangers had a homecoming in Harlem late last night, and the Magic Rat drove his sleek machine over the Jersey state line, barefoot girls sitting on the hood of a Dodge, drinking warm beer in a soft summer rain. I'm there. You know, towards the end, outside the streets on fire with a rear death waltz between the flesh and what's fantasy, between what's flesh and what's fantasy, and the poets down there, they don't write nothing at all, they just stand back and let it all be. And the quick of the night they reach for their moment and try to make an honest stand, but they wind up wounded, not even dead, tonight in Jungle Land. Oh, it's a classic. Classic. Absolute classic. So, what version do I play the most? I play this one, which is the 30th anniversary edition, which you can still get at a fair price. I was then being introduced to music that was quite new to me by friends as I was dabbling with. There's a friend I had, he was always buying things from the import rack. He had more money than me. And he bought this by a band called Styx, Equinox. Who the hell were these guys? But this was a fantastic album. One of their best. It's not the lineup that became Styx later on, is it? But Tommy Shaw's not on it, I suppose, what I'm trying to say. But what are songs? Light Up, L'Oreal, Mother Child, Lonely Child. But where it's at, where this band captured me, does this come with an insert? I can't remember. So I've been playing the CD, not the vinyl. Yeah, it does. With an ethereal, soft focus picture of the band. It was side 2. Midnight Run had a very heavy metal riff on it, but the track that I played the most and the track that helped me the most was Sweet Madam Blue. Absolutely brilliant. And have I got it with me? I don't know whether I have. Yes, I do. There's a 2 CD version which also has Crystal Ball on it. That's the one I play the most. But yeah, great album. We need a Styx box set, don't we? Not that one that's just got the little discs in. A proper one. A proper one. Next dovetails in with one of the albums I featured in my first 5 from 75, and it is Tommy Bolin. This is the original with guitarist and Deep Purple in the corner. I've got so many versions of this. As I realised that I had made a mistake with not listening to Come Taste the Band, my interest then moved towards this new guitarist and the fact he'd released it almost at the same time, his solo album, Teaser. And this is one of my favourite albums ever. There's a video on this, so I don't need to talk too much about it because I've already done it. And the one to get is this one. Get this one. What's it called? It's the 5 CD version. That's the one. But this is immaculate. This is probably one of the best solo albums by a guitarist ever written. Why? Because it goes through the whole spectrum of styles and genres. The grind is rock, funky rock. Homeward Strut is jazz, fusion, funk. Metal. Dreamer is a ballad with Glenn Hughes tucked on the end. Savannah Woman is jazz. Teaser again is hard rock, metal, funk. People is reggae. Marching Powder is full on progressive rock fusion. Wild Dogs is just immaculate, and Lotus is just brilliant. Again, combination of all of these different styles. This guy could have been massive. Why did this album help me? It helped me because it just held my attention. I've never got tired of it. The production is just immense. It's just timeless. You know, Homeward Strut, Tommy Bolin, Stanley Sheldon, Jeff Porcaro and David Foster. There's so many different people on here as well. Michael Walden's on here. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. It helped me because it inspired me. It just inspired me. Because it was also like an octopus, opening up tendrils into different styles of music that I you know, to this point I was rock, and now I was moving out into different things. I was discovering, you know, different schools of musicians and different things. This is a, you know, American guy with American connections. And it really is a fantastic album. I've done a separate video, as I said, so because if I don't stop myself now, I shall be talking about Tommy Bolin and the Teaser album for another 30 minutes, so I have to be very strict. Okay, so let's push that to one side. 1975, Montrose. I've covered Paper Money and the first Montrose album at length because they are so important to me in my development as a human being on the planet. And this is the days when you found out that an artist had got a new album out, most times by just finding it in the racks, because a lot of music papers, they only had so much page space to talk about new releases or review things, so not everything got reviewed. And if it did, it would probably be reviewed weeks after it was out, so it was worth going to the record shops and going through from A to Z, however long it took you to do that. It used to take me sometimes well over an hour, 2 hours. I would do that. It was such a big thing in my life. And then I'd go to the Montrose section, because there was one, to see if there was something new there. That's literally, you would go to the artist section in a record shop to see if there was something you hadn't seen before. And this appeared. So I bought it. I could tell from the back cover things had changed. It was no longer Sammy Hagar. It was somebody called Bob James, and also other people had changed as well. Denny was still there, but Alan Fitzgerald was on bass. And it all had someone playing the viola on that track as well. It was produced by Ronnie Montrose, which I think was an error. I know he wanted complete control, but Ted Templeman would have done things with this that only Ted Templeman could have done. The first track sounds like Deep Purple. I loved it, but it overstays its welcome a little bit. All I Need is like Bad Company on steroids. It's fantastic. 20th Like Rock, I didn't like that much, but I wanted to. Whaler, I didn't get at first because where was the riffs? Where was Ronnie? Side 2 was the side I played the most, and it was Dancing Feet, which sounds described when they did review it as one of the worst songs they'd ever heard, and a riff you'd never want to hear more than once. But that's not fair, because Van Halen used to jam with this track, and it's a great riff as far as I'm concerned. Oh Lucky Man was a cover. 1.5 was Ronnie Montrose doing his best Jimmy Page stuff. Clan Woman was showing his slide skills. But Black Train, last track, side 2, which was a cover version, but it was a speed metal proto track. The riff sped out the traps at a rate of knots, and at the end they slow down that riff and make it really guttural, but this bit with the speed, the guitar solo, that song, that song was again one of the tracks that just went into my head. So when I was having a hard time at work and, you know, the blokes were trying to, like, you know, kind of pick on me and stuff, I just disappeared into a room at the back of my head and put this on. I put Black Train on, and whatever was going on out there was not going to touch me, because the music would protect me, and in many ways it did, which I'll probably come on to in a second. And then I discovered the Doobie Brothers. Oh, the Montrose one, get the Rock Candy edition. The Doobie Brothers, who are one of my favourite bands of all time, and they are one of my favourite bands. I said earlier, it's a dull day, but there are certain bands that just create an atmosphere in a room that can't be duplicated. It's just like turning the sun on. And the Doobie Brothers is one of those bands. Ted Templeman, he even gets a photo credit on the back, and so he should. He's like an extra secret weapon, isn't he? The reason why this album meant so much to me was Neil's Fandango, but mainly I Cheat the Hangman. I mean, 1975, for those of you watching this going, what about The Captain and Me? It's another video. It was I Cheat the Hangman. And it was, that song is probably the closest the Doobie Brothers got to doing a prog rock track. The only thing missing from it is a killer solo from Tom Johnson. Instead, they put loads of strings in it to make it kind of, you know, lots of dramatic strings. But that's the only thing that's missing. It's just a fantastic song. But the Doobie Brothers, I suppose, it wasn't so much that this album helped me during this period, but this pressed the start button for me to start a journey to make me realise that music could actually change the atmosphere of the room that you're in or the situation you're in and give you a whole new world of possibilities. Absolutely fantastic. So, get this one. This was out on Rhino Records. It's a twofer, Stampede and Living on the Streets. I've actually got two more to go, but I know I'll have a run here, but this is important, especially this one. So I've gone back to the UK because when I did last week's, I realised there were two records that helped me, that really did help me. And it was Fighting by Thin Lizzy. I bought this for 50p from a little record shop on the Wheatsheaf near where I lived, in Sheldon. And Thin Lizzy at this time weren't really going anywhere. Nightlife had come out and I knew my friend's older brother had bought it, but it was nothing really on it that really intrigued me. So I took a chance on this. I did like Thin Lizzy, I had like Little Darling and stuff like that, but they were they'd faded. This was, Jailbreak was not out, okay? This had Rosalie on it, For Those Who Love to Live, Suicide, Wild One, Fighting My Way Back, King's Vengeance, Spirit Slips Away, Silver Dollar, Freedom Song, Ballad of a Hard Man. Now I'm giving that kind of a look as I mentioned some of the tongue titles because this opened up a doorway to an imaginary version of myself, in that no one's going to pick on me like this at work. You know, you're old enough to be my dad. You know, leave me alone. And also, it was obvious that, you know, Phil Lynott was not built like a brick shit house. He was just a normal skinny guy, hence they were called Thin Lizzy. And back in those days, I was about 9 stone, so I was also very slight, more fat on a chip. And so I just enveloped myself in songs like Ballad of a Hard Man and Fighting My Way Back. And so, you know, I remember, you know, being in the factory one day, the factory floor, and I'd done something to annoy the person I was working with. I was his apprentice, and he thumped me because of doing something wrong, and then told me to pick up his toolbox, and I didn't, and then he thumped me again, and he said pick it up, and I said no, I won't. And by this time, everyone in the factory was putting down their tools and watching. And he said, and I could tell that he was getting really pissed off that I wasn't doing what he was saying, and people were starting to look to see what he was going to do about it. And he went to hit me again, but he didn't, and I just stared at him and said, I'm not picking it up. I am not picking that up. You can pick it up yourself. And inside, I was absolutely petrified, but he walked off, and I knew that I had to face him later, but technically he also had to face me, because technically he was supposed to be looking after me as his apprentice. But of course back then I didn't realise that actually things would actually be okay. But after that, he didn't do that again. It was never the same. He didn't do that again, never tried it again. He just kind of said I needed to move on and I wasn't going to fit in. I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in because music was telling me that my path was going to be elsewhere and I was going to be okay. And so this album has a very, very special place in my heart. Thin Lizzy do anyway. Get the 2 CD version if you still can. This has lots of extra tracks on it, a whole CD worth obviously. So that is just, it's why when I did my Thin Lizzy ranking video, why it was so high. Always would be. And finally, probably the one you're least expecting is Supertramp, Crisis What Crisis. Look at that cover, 1975. That could be 2023, couldn't it? Or 2027, or 3033. Isn't that the world we're in now? I also bought this for 50p from the same shop at the same time as Fighting by Thin Lizzy. And I don't know why this album does have it. This is my favourite Supertramp album. It was my entry point. And how many of you out there will agree with me to say whatever you buy first from a band's back catalogue is the one that's your favourite? Nearly always. And if people tell you afterwards that it isn't their strongest point, it is. Maybe Love Beach by ELP might be pushing it, but this one, it was fine. The meaning, Lady, The Two of Us, Another Man's Woman, a soap opera, Sister Moonshine, Easy Does It. This gave me, again, an escape into a different kind of music, a different kind of feel to stuff. Again, it was opening up my world to lots of stuff that was out there. There was so much good music in 1975. I could easily just keep doing this, but I do want to cover other things as well. But thank you for all of your comments. Get the remastered one. All of your comments on these videos and how much you're enjoying them and how much you're enjoying my stories and stuff. And thank you for managing to cope from the beginning to the end of them as well, because I do tend to waffle a bit. But take care, everybody, and remember that music is the healer and the doctor, and it is a journey. It's not a destination. And it's interesting that so many of you commented on the first video telling me you'd had similar experiences, and that's another thing that goes beyond the different directions of what Now Spinning Magazine is the fact that it's a place where we can kind of talk about music, but the real effect that music has, collecting music and listening to it and being with it, and the effect it's had on our lives and being a diary and a soundtrack of so many different events. If you've enjoyed this, then please subscribe and ring the bell. Feel free to share, and if you can support me in any way by buying me a coffee, buying a Ko-fi link, or becoming a patron, even if it's just a little while, or a YouTube member, please do. So take care, all of you, and keep spinning those discs, and I shall see you on my next video.